My parents begged me to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded me for not buying a car. I showed up. Anyway, what happened next was shocking. Hi, I am Benjamin, 30-year-old man. I received a message on my phone 3 weeks ago that made me laugh so hard. I'm 30 years old. I had to take a break before reading it again. Not because it was humorous, but because it was completely irrelevant. My 25-year-old sister Isabella, who is getting married in a month, gave it to me. She wasn't just sending a kind, save the date, or an enthusiastic thank you message. Not at all. A wedding gift list was required, and the link led to a PDF with that title. At first I took it for a joke, but when I opened it, I saw she was asking for a new car. She was very specific about the details: a white Audi Q5, a deposit on a downtown apartment, and 3 designer bags that exceeded my monthly rent dues put together. In large, bold characters, she had written priority beneath every item. I was both entertained and frustrated as I sat there, staring at my phone. My relationship with Isabella has never been smooth sailing. She was my parents' favorite child, and they did everything for her when she was growing up. I was stuck driving the family's beat-up old automobile that wouldn't start in the winter, while she got a shiny new car when she was 19 years old. I was finally beginning to put some money down after working my way through college and paying off my own school loans. Contrarily, Isabella continued to live with my parents up until last year and worked her way through a number of jobs without ever actually contributing to the household budget. I felt sick to my stomach when I saw that she was asking me to purchase an apartment for her, not our parents. My response was delayed. The following day she sent a follow-up message that read, "Hey, just making sure you saw my list. We need to start arranging things so everything is ready by the honeymoon. We're counting on you." We thought maybe I misunderstood the tone or that there would be a follow-up text saying, "Ha, just kidding." However, nothing changed. Relying on me. As if this were some sort of familial obligation, not an unreasonable demand for a substantial financial obligation. At that point, I replied, "Isabella, I'm not buying you a car or an apartment. I'll get you something off a normal registry, but I'm not spending tens of thousands of dollars on this." Like she had been patiently waiting for me to respond, her response came very immediately. "Oh my God, are you kidding me? You're my brother. This is how families roll. If you're not going to be the man, then there's no use in attending the wedding." I did nothing except gaze at the television, my heart racing a bit more than I had anticipated. I didn't even experience disappointment. An odd blend of relief and wrath washed over me. It was a relief because I had always felt the need to delicately navigate Isabella's territory in order to maintain peace. She was angry because her true colors were on display, and she wasted no time using the wedding to achieve what she wanted. It went unanswered. Perhaps our parents would talk her out of it, or she would calm down, I thought. On the contrary, a barrage of calls began to appear on my phone, starting with my mom, and moving on to my dad. My mom dove headfirst into the conversation as soon as I hung up. Just a blank stare. No one even bothered to ask how I was doing. "Benjamin, I just spoke with Isabella, and she's sobbing. She claims that you told her that you won't be able to afford the wedding presents. Do you need me to clarify something?" I took a deep breath and did my best to be calm. "Look, my mom asked me to buy her a car and an apartment. Not as a wedding present. That's not normal, and I'm not going to do it," I said to my mom, who then sighed as if I were the one being unreasonable. The other person remained silent for a second. I pursed my lips and said, "You know she's starting a new life. It would mean so much if you helped her get a good start." My nose prickled under my cheek. "Mom, I have my own life to consider. I'm not going into debt for a wedding." My dad interjected at that point. His voice was more forceful than normal. "If you can't be there for your sister on her special day, Benjamin, perhaps you should skip this." Worse than Isabella's text, that made me realize we don't need negativity to spoil the party. I had always believed that my relationship with my dad was strong. I said, "Fine," in response to his abruptly taking her side without making an effort to comprehend my perspective. I said, "If that's how you all feel, then I won't come." Then I ended the call. Afterwards, there was an unusual lack of activity. No one in the family got in touch with me for nearly 7 days. Nothing more than that. No status updates. A Facebook screenshot that a buddy had provided me made me question whether I had overreacted. Isabella expressed her gratitude for her actual support system in a lengthy status post on imposter relatives that leave you high and dry when you need them the most. Countless relatives had made remarks along the lines of, "You don't need toxic people on your big day and focus on your happiness, girl." I wanted to express my disapproval, but I maintained my composure. Until yesterday, when I received another call, I tried to ignore it by concentrating on my job and avoiding thoughts about it. Specifically, this one is from my cousin, who was a wedding guest herself. He whispered softly, as if he didn't want anyone to overhear him. But the things that transpired at the bridal shower were unbelievable. "If you can't follow simple instructions, don't bother turning here," Isabella exclaimed, hurling the present bag back at one of your aunts who she felt had gotten her the wrong purse. "Your folks are attempting damage control, but it's terrible. Really bad." Half the room got up and went. I sat there, listening, my heart racing. The scene seemed reminiscent of a vehicle wreck in slow motion. Even though I wanted to turn away, I couldn't help but keep watching to find out what happened next. Once upon a time, I wasn't the antagonist. Nobody except me was responsible for the uproar. I was content to sit back and let Isabella reveal her true self to everyone. As I was trying to figure out what my cousin had said, my mom sent me a fresh text message. 3 simple words. I lingered over those 4 words. "We need to talk." Before answering. I wanted to turn a blind eye to them for a while, allow my folks to stew in the muck that Isabella had just made. But I couldn't resist the urge to find out more. I responded, "About what?" as the type bubbles came and went before Mom sent the message. "We need to talk about the wedding, so could you possibly drop over tonight?" I was about to burst out laughing. To make it sound like I was magically invited back. Discuss the wedding? It was as if the accusations, guilt trips, and other hurtful things that had been uttered to me had simply disappeared. It wasn't to make amends. I was curious to know what they were going to say now that Isabella had embarrassed herself in public. So I went. The tension was palpable the moment I pulled up to my folks' house that evening. My dad merely nodded, opened it, and said, "Benjamin," without offering an embrace or a smile. His face was tense. On the other side, Mom had a stack of papers laying on the kitchen table. With her arms crossed and a look on her face as if I were directly responsible for her downfall, Isabella was also present. "Thanks for coming," Mom began, her voice unusually placid, the kind she would use when breaking bad news. Keeping my demeanor calm, I leaned against the doorframe and said, "We've been talking, and we really think this has gone too far. Isabella's wedding is supposed to be a happy occasion, and right now, everyone is tense and upset. It's time to put the past behind us and make things right." It was not me who caused the tension. My invitation to the wedding was rescinded when I expressed my reluctance to purchase an apartment. It's not my problem. Isabella made a resounding scoff. "Benjamin, you have always been so self-centered, and now we're having this huge argument over something I never said you had to purchase. I only said it would be great if you contributed once. You make a lot of money, but you never pitch in to help out the family. Can you imagine how my brother feels when he can't even provide for me?" I snapped at her, my jaw snapping shut. "Isabella, you didn't ask for help. You sent me a list of demands. That's not the same thing." She narrowed her pupils. "You always twist everything to make me look bad." Dad sprang to his feet and tried to assert his dominance at that moment. "Listen, bickering won't get us anywhere. Presented here is our decision," he said, gesturing toward the pile of documents on the table. "These are some of the things Isabella still needs for the wedding. We thought maybe you could at least take care of 1 or 2 of them as a gesture of goodwill." I approached the list and examined it. It wasn't quite as pricey as the previous one, but it was still really pricey. The wedding photographer's travel expenses, a weekend rental for the rehearsal dinner, and a portion of the honeymoon suite cost. A gradual surge of disbelief washed over me. "So, allow me to clarify this," I whispered. "Isabella told me not to come if I didn't buy her an apartment, and you both supported her. I stayed quiet, didn't fight back, didn't show up at her bridal shower, and now you're calling me here to try to squeeze money out of me anyway." Mom began to shift. "It's not about money, Benjamin. It's about family. Everyone will notice if you're not there. People are already talking." "Good," I blurted out before anyone could stop me. "Let them talk." Isabella's hand slammed against the table in reactions to that. "You are unbelievable. Do you even realize how humiliating this has been for me? Everyone thinks I'm some spoiled brat because you couldn't just keep this private. You've made me look like a fool." "Isabella," I murmured slowly, "you accomplished that entirely on your own. I didn't make you look like anything." At that moment, I felt a peculiar calmness sweep over me, and the room fell silent. Mom's lips formed a narrow line. It appeared as though Dad was trying to say something, but he was at a loss for words. At last Mom spoke again, but this time with more Sealy. "Benjamin, Please consider the impact on our family if you choose not to show up. If we remain divided, people will perceive us as distant. I inhaled deeply and straightened my back. Perhaps our differences are actually working for us, and that might not be a bad thing at the moment, Isabella said, laughing with a hint of scorn. So, you're really just going to skip my wedding? You're fine with me walking down the aisle knowing my own brother didn't care enough to show up? I stared into her eyes, my face a mystery. She felt her cheeks flush and her jaw drop as she prepared to retaliate, but Mom intervened just in time. I care enough not to let you bully me into buying your happiness. I got up to go, but Isabella mumbled something under her breath as she did so. That's enough for tonight. Everyone just needs to calm down. If he believes he can escape this, he's in for another surprise. I froze, my finger poised on the doorknob, and for an instant, I contemplated speaking up, urging her not to interfere any further. However, I chose to simply exit by walking out and allowing the door to close behind me. Colder than it ought to have been, the air outside felt. A peculiar clarity washed over me as I felt a heavy sensation in my chest. I wasn't the one attempting to solve every problem for once. No one was pressuring me to make peace. It was not me. I returned home to discover that my phone had begun to explode. Members of my extended family have been tagging me in postings and sending me group texts, with some questioning whether it was real that I wouldn't be able to make there, and others mentioning that Isabella had been sobbing the whole night. Afterwards, I received yet another message shortly before midnight. This one was from my aunt, who was known to be quite blunt. Benjamin, the message continued, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Tonight Isabella lost it in front of everyone. People are starting to see what you've been dealing with all these years. A glum grin gradually spread across my face as I continued to stare at my phone. I didn't identify as the antagonist for a change. This time around it wasn't me who was on trial. Plus, it had been a long time since I had considered the possibility that waiting for things to unfold wasn't the best course of action. It has to be done. But that was yesterday, before an unforeseen invitation arrived in my mailbox this morning. Something that caused me to stop, take a seat at the kitchen table, and question whether my sister had just committed the gravest error of her life. This wedding invitation wasn't like the ones most couples send out, not at all. It appeared as though this one had been hurriedly printed on ordinary cardstock and sent at the last minute. Within the envelope, which bore my handwritten name, was a single sheet that stated, Benjamin, you're invited back to the wedding. Please come, Isabella. There was zero mention of the weeks of turmoil she had sown, zero explanation, and zero remorse. The message was brief and abrupt, coming across more as an order than an olive branch. I had to read it 3 times before I could tell if it was funny or not. Then I made a peculiar observation. They seemed to have sent it in a state of desperation, or without intending to at all, since the RSVP portion had been crossed out with ink. My cousin called me again later that afternoon. He sounded almost like a whisper. You're not going to believe this, but Isabella is panicking. Half the wedding party is threatening to drop out. Your aunt won't speak to her. 2 of your uncles told her they're skipping entirely, and apparently one of her bridesmaids told her she's acting like a dictator. Your folks are really pleading with everyone to come anyway. Reclining on my seat, I listened. I felt a peculiar combination of relief and burden in my chest. Happiness since Isabella's outbursts were beginning to affect her. The strain on my cousin's voice made it sound heavy. He hoped the wedding would go forward without a hitch. So now she wants me there to make it look like everything's fine, I whispered. He responded. Indeed. I think she's terrified of losing face. She's telling people you misunderstood her, that it was just a joke, that she never meant to kick you out. But nobody's buying it. She's unraveling, man. My dad texted me that night. At this point, it seemed almost imploring. Benjamin, your sister is going through a tough time. Let's not make things worse. Your mother and I would be eternally grateful if you could attend the wedding. I pondered that statement for quite some time, my phone resting on the coffee table while I wandered restlessly throughout the room. How the tables had turned so swiftly was not lost on me. Just 3 weeks ago, it was I who was being cast in a villainous light and warned to keep my distance. It wasn't that they suddenly held me in high esteem. It was that Isabella's actions had finally cost her something, and now they wanted me to return. That night I slept poorly. Every single thing happened again and over in my mind. Everything from the list she emailed me to her arrogant tone and ultimatum when she told me not to come to her explosive behavior during the bridal shower. The years of being encouraged to be the bigger person and ignored seemed to be building up inside of me. I felt like I finally had some power. It had been a while since she required my help more than I did. Mom contacted the following day. She seemed almost sorry in her tone this time. "Benjamin, honey, I know this has been hard. Your sister isn't perfect. She can be demanding, but she's under a lot of stress right now. Can't we all just move on? The wedding is supposed to be about love and family. Don't you want to be part of that?" Breathing deeply, I paused. "Mom, I do want to be part of the family, but being part of the family shouldn't mean letting Isabella walk all over me. Do you realize what she asked me for? A car? An apartment? Designer bags? And when I said no, she tried to shame me into giving in." For an extended period, Mom remained silent. "Perhaps she crossed a line," she reluctantly conceded. "But she's your sister. If you don't come, she'll never forgive you, and I don't think I could handle seeing you two estranged forever." That was it. I was anticipating the emotional card's arrival. I squinted because I didn't want Isabella to see that she could treat me any way she wanted and yet succeed in the end if I went. Even if she had been completely unreasonable, I would still be held responsible for spoiling her special day if I skipped it. To get some fresh air and clear my mind, I went for a lengthy walk around my neighborhood that night. I paused for a while as I strolled past a little wedding venue that was getting ready for an event, seeing random people string lights and arrange flowers. Isabella, I imagined, would be strutting down the aisle, beaming with self-satisfaction at her victory. I felt sick to my stomach at the very idea. I was greeted with yet another note upon my return home. Now it's Isabella's turn. It was the longest message she had ever sent. "Benjamin, I know we've been fighting, but I really want you there. It won't feel right without you. I'll even let you bring whoever you want. Just please come. I promise it will be a day we can all look back on happily." A trace of frailty appeared in her remarks for the very first occasion. However, the nagging suspicion that this wasn't about making amends persisted. The focus was on visuals. Having her brother there made her want to ruin a nice day. A flawless photo album was her desire. I remained motionless as I put the phone down, because an idea was cooking in my subconscious, one that was both exciting and risky. This concept became crystal evident when my cousin phoned me later that night to provide me with one last piece of information: a detailed seating chart for Isabella. I didn't hesitate to sit down and get a pen when my cousin informed me about the seating chart. Apparently, Isabella had completely changed the front area to ensure that the family would look absolutely stunning for the wedding. Naturally, my parents would take their seats in the front row, adjacent to the parents of the groom. Next to it, a few seats down, in the exact middle of the room, was a Benjamin Plus guest place card that would be visible to everyone as soon as I entered. It had become about more than just my presence. Dominance was at stake. The world needed to see Isabella's picture-perfect wedding so she could prove to everyone, including her embarrassed brother, that she had everyone's love and support. It was at that moment that I resolved not to go along for the ride if I went. My terms, not hers, would govern my departure. I reconnected with my cousin the following day. With a simple, "Tell them I'll come," I spoke up. "But I'm not buying anything from that list, and I'm not changing my mind at the last minute. If they want me there, they get me as I am. Not as Isabella wants me to be." He let out a low laugh. "Oh, this is going to be interesting." Messages from relatives expressing their gratitude for my peacemaking and joy at being able to attend the wedding flooded my phone in the days preceding up to the big day. To top it all off, Isabella included a single thumbs-up emoji in her final message, as if it were meant to mark the end of the chapter. On the morning of the wedding, I took great care in getting dressed, selecting a subtle navy suit that I knew would complement my figure. For the time being, I had no intention of making a fuss. However, I did bring a companion. Oliver, my best friend and former college roommate who was privy to all of my family's issues, was our date instead. Even when I paid off my final college loan one night when Isabella was out shopping in Paris, he was there for me. He was there when I was at my lowest moment. He inquired, "Are you sure about this?" As we drove into the parking area of the venue, I responded with a absolutely no problem, even though my chest was racing. A picturesque vineyard served as the setting. Interspersed by oak trees, a symphony of gentle music and pristine white seats. The atmosphere changed the second we touched down. It seemed like everyone was staring at me as we made our way to the seats. As soon as she saw me, my mom jumped to her feet, her expression a blend of relief and anxiety. "Benjamin, you succeeded," she remarked as she embraced me with haste. "I'm so glad you came." I noticed a hint of pride in my dad's countenance as he nodded at me firmly, as if he was relieved that I hadn't totally deserted the family. After that, Isabella showed up. Of course, with her flawless cosmetics and elaborately styled hair, she looked absolutely lovely. However, her smile upon seeing me was very broad and forced. "Benjamin," she uttered with that falsely charming and ethereal accent. "I'm so glad you could make it." Politely, I nodded. "Wouldn't miss it," I pronounced. Evidently taken aback, her gaze quickly shifted to Oliver. "And you brought a friend?" "Yeah," I responded with a level head. Her lips curled into a wink, but she said, "I figured since I was being put on display, I might as well have someone in my corner." She merely pivoted on her heel and proceeded to welcome another individual. Everything went off without a hitch as the ceremony began, just as Isabella had imagined. There were real gasps as Isabella walked down the aisle, the music swelled, and the groom beamed. I came close to letting my guard down for an instant. Almost there. But then I thought back on all the times she had warned me not to come unless I could buy her happiness through SMS and calls. After the vows were exchanged at the reception, the true moment arrived. As the laughter and clinking of glasses filled the air, servers scurried from table to table, bringing trays of champagne. I remained seated during the toast until the first dance was over and everyone was staring at the pair. "Hello everyone," I greeted while raising my glass. There was an uncomfortable ripple of laughing when Benjamin, the brother who wasn't meant to be here until approximately a week ago, was introduced. For an instant, I thought I caught Isabella's smile frolicking. "I just wanted to say," said I, "that weddings are supposed to be about love and new beginnings. They're also about family, the real kind of family, the kind that sticks together when things get hard, not just when it's convenient, or when there's money involved. And I think today is a good day to remind ourselves that respect goes both ways." The other person seemed to respond with silence. In response, some nodded, while others moved uncomfortably. With her hand firmly grasping the rear of her chair, Isabella's complexion had turned pale. My voice remained steady and tranquil as I continued. "I didn't buy an apartment or a car, or any of the other things I was asked to buy. What I did bring today was something better. Myself, on my own terms. Because I may not be the perfect brother, but I refuse to be the doormat brother." I refilled my glass, ate my toast, and took a seat. After a long period of quiet, a number of individuals, including the groom's father, 2 uncles, and my aunt, did clap. Redness had spread across Isabella's face. She sprang to her feet suddenly, murmured something about wanting to see how the cake was doing, and strode off to the kitchen. Lightness pervaded the remainder of the gathering. People would discreetly approach me to express their gratitude for expressing their thoughts that they had been harboring for weeks. At one point, even my dad walked up to me, rested his hand on my shoulder, and remarked, "You spoke well, son." However, the true consequences were felt in the evening. From the bridal suite, my cousin sent me a snapshot via text message. My mom looked fatigued as she sat next to Isabella, who was seated on the floor in her wedding dress with mascara pouring down her face. It seems that Isabella had vowed to remove people out of her life after accusing half of her family of taking sides. She finally sees it. Everyone's done catering to her tantrums. The words came from my cousin recently. On the way home with Oliver, I experienced a sense of tranquility that I hadn't felt in a long time. It had been the first time that I hadn't given in or apologized only to avoid conflict. I had publicly asserted my independence. Even if it had cast me in the role of villain, Isabella had to face the consequences of her actions. My mother sent me a single text message the following morning. I sat for a long time staring at that message before setting the phone down and smiling. "Benjamin, I know last night was hard, but you did the right thing. Maybe this will be the wake-up call she needs." I knew I had finally ended the cycle, regardless of what happened after that. Plus, I was not going to be the one to resolve the issue this time. Isabella would have to make a choice, mature or remain a child forever. No matter what happened, I was never going to return to my role as the submissive brother. That was liberating all at once, after a lengthy period of rest.